Resilience. We talked about this once before, but resilience is a beautiful sounding word that rolls and sways across your tongue. It almost leaves you smiling. How is a word that suggestively breathes wonder and amazement, as in, how did they persevere? How is it possible? Recently, a Hollywood family was allegedly murdered by their son. Students were gunned down at Brown University, and an ISIS terror plot was thankfully foiled in Los Angeles. United States soldiers were ambushed in Syria and Washington, D.C. In addition, an MIT mathematics professor was violently shot to death. How do we survive this evil? Josette Molland was a French artist, a superlative forger, and one of the last surviving members of the French resistance during World War II. Born on 14 May 1923 in Bourget, France, she grew up in Lyon. From a young age, she pursued her passion for art, enrolling in the Lyon School of Fine Arts in 1939, despite her parents' wishes for a more conventional career. However, her life took a dramatic turn during the Nazi occupation of southern France in 1943, transforming her from an art student into a key figure in the underground fight against real historical Nazi tyranny. At just 20 years old in 1943, Molland joined the Dutch Paris Network, a vital escape line that smuggled over 1,000 Jewish refugees, Allied airmen, and other persecuted individuals through France to safety in Spain and Switzerland. Leveraging her artistic precision, she became a master forger, creating fake identity papers, travel permits, ration cards, and official stamps carved from rubber erasers. These documents were so meticulously crafted that they often fooled even Gestapo inspectors. Her work was high stakes. Discovery often meant immediate execution. She traveled covertly, hiding documents in her sketchbooks, and operated from her studio above the family pharmacy. Molland's efforts exemplified quiet, creative defiance, turning her talent for silk weaving designs into tools of liberation. Travel for freedom-seeking airmen involved dodging random Nazi checkpoints, where a suspicious glance or faulty papers could lead to arrest. If captured, airmen risked interrogation under torture, imprisonment in POW camps, or execution if determined to be spies. The French resistance faced even graver dangers. Networks were frequently infiltrated by collaborators or Gestapo. Approximately 40,000 French citizens were deported specifically for acts of resistance. Of these, around 27,000 died in Nazi concentration camps or during deportation due to harsh conditions, executions, or exhaustion. One of several escape routes led south through Belgium and France to the Spanish border, where evaders faced the grueling task of crossing the Pyrenees Mountains on foot, typically at night, in poor weather, with minimal supplies, and guided by paid locals like Basque shepherds. Alternative paths included boat evacuations from Brittany beaches directly to England, or, less commonly, routes to Sweden via the Netherlands. Once in neutral Spain, airmen contacted British diplomats for transport to Gibraltar and a flight back to the UK. Later in the war, after D-Day in June 1944, some escape lines adapted by hiding airmen in forest camps until advancing Allied forces arrived. On 18 March 1944, betrayal struck. A captured courier revealed contacts, leading Gestapo agents to raid Josette's home. They found her forgery tools, and Molland was arrested. Interrogated at the Hotel Terminus in Lyon, the headquarters of SS officer Klaus Barbie, the infamous Butcher of Lyon, she endured brutal torture. Barbie's regime was notorious for beatings, electrocution, and waterboarding, claiming thousands of lives. At 20 years old, Molland somehow refused to betray her network, protecting names, safe houses, and escape routes. She remained silent. How? She was eventually sent to Ravensbrück camp and Holischen, a subcamp of Flossenburg in Czechoslovakia. Liberated by U.S. forces on 5 May 1945, she returned to Lyon, reuniting with her mother and weighing 66 pounds, barely enough to survive the journey home. Again, how did she do this? Josette's circuitous ordeal sent her first to Ravensbrück, the Nazis' primary women's concentration camp in Germany, where over 130,000 women were imprisoned and at least 50,000 murdered through starvation experiments and forced labor. She toiled through 12-hour shifts in an ammunition factory, her body wasting away on meager rations of watery soup and bread crust. Again, how did she survive? During capture, Molland amazingly organized small acts of resistance in the camps, including escape attempts and prisoner solidarity actions. She said, "What I lived in the camps, I can't even describe it. Unimaginable. If you haven't lived it, you can't understand. Every day we thought would be our last." So, today, how do we survive the anti-Semitism and the indiscriminate murder of God's people? How do we survive the pressure, torment, and deep unhappiness of our lives? Well, we must remember that our lives are no less burdensome than the lives of historical, real people. We are better off not comparing today's struggles to the past. That would only diminish our present, though we can learn from history. Now is our today. Our hurt today can be deep and devastating. So how do we get through it? The answer is faith, prayer, and a desire to know God more deeply. Jesus said many times, "Your faith has saved you." In Hebrews 5:7, in the days of his flesh, Jesus offered up prayers and supplications with loud cries and tears to the one who was able to save him from death, and he was heard. 2 Corinthians 2:14 says, "But thanks be to God, who in Christ always leads us in triumphal procession, and through us spreads in every place the fragrance that comes from knowing him." In addition, though, if we fear death and die like so many of those murdered in the camps or in today's violent crime or in war, not to worry. That's when we receive the ultimate reward. To know this is to not fear death. Thank you for watching this episode of History and Prayer, America 250. Let us make it a point to say Merry Christmas despite what evil forces may throw at us. Let's build our faith, prayer power, and continue to know our Father's reality on this earth better than we do now. To do so is to build resilience. There is always hope. Good day. And again, Merry Christmas.